If there were a place in the world where you could store and protect the truth, it might be deep in the Rockies, in a field, on a ranch, in a silo, where an American patriot tells you what keeps him awake at night. Now, here is Medal of Honor recipient Drew Dix and words from the Silo.
Welcome, folks, to episode 10 of Words from the Silo. You know, we've gotten a lot of calls from previous episodes, and we ought to discuss that before we get into the program we're having today on immigration, which I know it should be on a lot of people's minds because it's on mine, and we see it in the news all the time about the pros and cons of immigration and the rulings by judges on certain matters. Mm-hmm. So, but before we get into that, Brad, what do you have from our previous program?
Well, I think the question that came up, it was kind of timely from our last episode on leadership gunfighter style with Hegseth's recent developments. You know, what do you think about the reduction of generals by 20%? Because that's kind of what we were touching on with the size of the military and things like that.
Well, I think he's on the right track, but he's not deep enough.
Okay.
He's not deep enough. But the danger of just cutting by 20% is that you might get rid of some positions or general officers or flag officers that we could use. There's some good ones out there. There's no doubt about it. So I'm always concerned about establishing a number, a percentage. But I think that's the way he has to do it for guidance to those under him. But the thing about it is, as I've already discussed before, I think there ought to be a Doge commission almost on interviewing generals and even colonels now. We got a bunch of colonels. I don't know what you're going to do with all these colonels. I mean, there's a lot of them and Navy captains, and that's the next rank just below general. That we've got to get serious about how we address the rank per se. First of all, years in the service, or the rank itself doesn't make you smarter. It's the experience. So the general officers and the colonel ranks, that's just before general, they should be looking at those that have performed the duties and got the background and experience and training to put them in a position to supervise those of that rank.
Is it by tenure now? Only tenure? Or?
Well, it's a combination of tenure, which is time in the service, and then there's time in grade of the previous rank. But then there's also evaluations that have been made by your rater over you. And but I do believe, it's a little far-fetched, but I believe that rather than just say 20%, I think the remainder 80%, or all the 100%, needs to be actually they need to be evaluated. And I don't mean a complicated evaluation process. What I mean is just have someone that the secretary has confidence in that actually can look face to face in the eyes of every one of those general officers or flag officers. And I'll tell you, if you've got leadership yourself, you're a leader, you can look somebody in the eye and know if they're bullshitting you or not about what they would do today to make the military better.
Do you think then, are you saying that the 20% that they cut is a number, but You want to know which 20% they cut.
Yeah, it's a number, and I know I'm not taking anything away from that amount. That's a budget amount, and it's commensurate with the number of our end strength.
Do you think we're top heavy? Do you think
We're
that
absolutely
we're
top heavy?
Okay.
I'm going to go out on a limb on this one. Now, a lot of my background was in special forces, and in special forces, the ultimate fighting force is the A team, 12 people. And there's a certain number of A teams in every company. I believe it's 13 it was when I was in. And so when you got so many companies and then a couple of groups, I bet at Fort Bragg or in the adjoining areas, we have more colonels, that's 06s, than we have A team commanders.
What do you think?
We'd be close. Somebody's going to say, oh, no, we're not.
So those promotions, then, how do you end up getting top heavy if it originated to be a structure, a pyramid, if you will, to where it scales up? But how do you end up with so many 06s with the promotions?
Well, that peacetime does that a lot. Okay. When you're in war, you do with what you have, and you promote if you need them. But then when the war's over, you got the promotions, and then you got staff officers. You got more officers than you do troops to lead, that they sit around and make new positions. And the old saying was, if you could create a new organization that had a general officer in the head of it, it'd get passed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we are.
Well, sometimes in the corporate world, you'll see guys get promoted because they want to get them out of the way, and so that's no good. Is there early retirement?
I don't think that's happening in the military.
Is there early retirement though? Is there incentives where they could cut these guys and they take some compensation to get out?
Well, it's not really complicated in the officer's rank at that level, because a colonel has been in over 20 years, more than likely. There might be a rare case for someone with 18, 19. But more, over 20, and then the general officers more than that, so they already have a compensation package available. Now, there's some field, like in the medical field, where they promote, give doctors an officer's rank early, and so they might have less time in the service, but they also have a profession, and I don't know if they need to be colonels to keep a doctor in. They can have another scale, in my opinion, because it's taken away from a position, a colonel, so to speak. Because what the public doesn't realize, now they're paid very well. Colonels and generals paid very well, and when they're retired, they get very good retirement. But when you have someone that's a colonel or a general officer, they have somewhat of a staff under them, maybe a driver or secretary, or all, depending on what their job is, and so that's more bodies. And I remember when we had the episode on leadership gunfighter style. Hank was definite on that. The gunfighter, when he was corps commander, he was entitled to 2 aides, a cook, and a house person, a yard person, all that. He got rid of almost all of them. Only had 1 aide, was me. Didn't fill the second one. Hired one of my Chinese guys I brought back that was a mercenary to be his house person, and he paid for that person out of his own salary. So there's it's not new, this inflated command element that we have, but the number with about 10 divisions, I think I said 3 last time, but I was thinking of something else, but there's about 10 divisions now. We had maybe 80 in World War II, Army, and we don't have as many generals as we did in World War II, but we have a fraction of the troops. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm right on. I don't think they're going deep enough. Just because you make somebody a colonel doesn't make them any smarter. There's a whole bunch, years ago, in my day, if you retired as a captain or a major, that was the way it was. And they had a lot more experience. So all of a sudden they're now a colonel. They're not any smarter. No way.
Okay. So not going deep enough on cutting from the top, cutting the fat from the top. but we still need more troops.
We got to have more troops.
Yeah, more troops.
Yeah.
So our recruiting needs to improve.
It does, and it is. The other thing, Brad, that I want to mention is if it didn't come clear on the last one of the last episodes about the draft versus the volunteer military, my idea is if we ever have to fight a big war, we're going to have a draft.
Right.
Whether it's male and female or whatever, but we got to have this draft. So you don't draft sergeants. You don't draft officers generally. You draft young men and women, if we're drafting women, to come in. So I think the regular military there should be a plan to use them as a cadre to outfit those those units that we've created with draftees. In other words, take from the core professional military and put them in those other positions to fill out the combat unit. Because they'll have to, if you're drafting to go to war, they're going to have to go to war soon. And we can't be training NCOs for a long haul until we're ready to use them. We need them now.
Now, people think that talking draft, it's been so long since there's been a draft that it's almost like that's crazy thinking that we would need a draft. But your point, once again, to reiterate, is the fact that if we had a multi-front war, we don't have enough troops to cover.
We don't have enough troops, and we don't need all those colonels and generals. We need troops. The span of control of a colonel would be 4,000 or 5,000 men or women. I don't know what it is now, 1,400 or something.
Okay.
It's way down. And again, the rank does not make the leader.
Makes sense. All right. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we're going to talk about immigration. This is a subject that I've given a lot of thought about over the last few years, mainly about the last 5 or so, 4.5, 5, where we've got to get a real handle on this. So what I don't understand, not so much the politics of it, is it appears that a lot of the country, the people in the country, are supporting open borders and the rulings that some of these judges have made to override the deportation. Now, for the life of me, Brett, I can't figure out how we could require the courts or the administration to bring criminals back once they've been deported because they were a criminal and they came in here illegally. Why would we do that?
What's the argument? Due process?
I don't know. Maybe too many lawyers or something. I don't know.
Well,
but I'm afraid it's become political. It's the only thing I can figure out is we know there's crimes being committed by American citizens. I got that.
Yeah.
Every society has criminals in it. But the argument is illegals are not causing all the crime. Well, I agree.
Okay.
But if we didn't have those, it'd be less. And they're really vicious crimes. There's rapes and murders and
trafficking.
Why would anybody condone that? I think the penalties are not severe enough.
Do people actually? I guess maybe I'm a little naive. Do they actually go out and say they condone it, that they want illegal immigration, or they're just arguing that the way that people are being deported is illegal, which doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it doesn't make sense to me either, Brad, but that's why we're having this discussion, is I can't figure out, because maybe I walk in different circles, and maybe you do, that we don't run into people that support these known gang members, gangs that have pledged violence as part of initiation for for example. Why would we even? We can't tolerate it. It's a flaw. Tolerance is a character flaw.
Yeah.
And so I think it's politics. It's got to be politics. And the politicians are hijacked now I'm not talking about Republican, Democrat here, but we're talking about maybe conservatives or liberal thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be liberal thinking that they can turn these people around and make them better people. Is that the case? Better citizens? No. They're not citizens, for one.
Yeah. I mean, the influx that happened over the open border time, last whatever, how many years, 3-4 years, has created this influx of people. And now I think there's a effort to weed out the illegal immigration.
Yeah.
And, immigration, I mean, somebody would argue, well, that's what made the country this, that, the other. Well, yeah, of course, but we have this problem now. And bad actors are using the border openness to infiltrate us with other. We don't even know what's planted here now.
No,
in regards to the real problem.
Yeah, we got two big issues. One, or maybe more than that, but one is the crime that's affecting citizens, and the other is the readiness. The numbers of healthy males coming across, combat-age males, look fit to me, coming across and melding into the society. Where are they going to be if we get into a big war?
Well, when I saw the pictures, right, the optics on the guys being sent to El Salvador or whatever when they were being deported, people say, oh, look, maybe somebody sees that and says, oh, look how cruel we are. I looked at it and said, that looks like some badasses, that were here, and who knows how many more, to where if we could be attacked from within or whatever. I mean, obviously 9/11's been a long time gone, but that happened where we were kind of infiltrated. Guys became pilots and everything else on our own terms, and were able to do what they did. And I think this is multiplied.
Well, these gang members are wearing it on their sleeve, their chest, their forehead, and everywhere.
Well, that's good. We can find them.
Yeah,
that's easy.
But I hope they don't stop that habit.
Yeah, keep wearing a jersey.
Yeah, because we're going to be harder to find them. But somebody'd say, well, just because they have a tattoo doesn't mean they're bad. Well, no, if it's a tattoo, MS-13 or Tren de Aragua, then I think it's bad.
Well, anytime you're rooting out organized crime, it takes 100 years. I mean, to get rid of organized crime in this country of whatever it was, and they still can't do it. So organized crime's dangerous, and that's gangs, organized crime.
Well, we've had gangs from the time we were bringing immigrants over. You've heard stories of the Irish gangs, the Italian gangs, the Germans, but mainly the Irish and Italians seem to have a handle on the gang activity. And maybe it's because they're taking advantage of the situation. They're preying on maybe their own at first.
Yeah. Well, just because I'm Italian, I'm not going to plead the fifth. But
and I'm Irish, so I think we got
that's all right. But everybody has culture, and that's what makes America great.
Yeah.
And everything else. And I mean, obviously, I had grandparents that were immigrants from Italy and things. But when my grandmother and they landed in Pueblo, Colorado to work in the steel mill and things, they didn't teach my dad like Italian in the household. They wanted to be Americans. Mm-hmm. They came here to be Americans, and it was a different mindset. Maybe it's because you're coming that far, and maybe Mexico's a little close to go back and forth, and that might be a different challenge today with the convenience of mobility.
Yeah. And it's not just Mexico now. They're coming from the border, but Mexicans, nationals are not our biggest problem.
No, we have some great Mexican nationals that work here in town and that we're friends with, and but they did it the right way.
Yeah, I have my personal opinion. I probably some people would disagree with me on this, but I have no problem with people coming across the border to work and do jobs. I have a big problem with them coming across the border from wherever they come from, and the first thing is the government gives them money, and Medicare or Social Security money or whatever. Wherever it's coming from our coffers, and it discourages work.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of anyone coming over here that contacted you and your business and say, yeah, I'm going to employ so-and-so, and it's your responsibility. And if you fire them or you don't have the job for them anymore, they have to get another job or leave, period. That's it.
Well, I mean, I have a good friend a pretty good friend. He comes to one of my businesses in town, and he's from Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
And he grabs me all the time. He goes, Brad, what's going on in this country? Why are we letting everybody come and everything else? And can't comprehend it. He said, it's going to become like Venezuela where he left, and he's not a wealthy guy, and just he's a worker.
Yeah.
And so that's common sense.
Yeah, it's common sense, and that's why this program is doing so well, is the fact that we take a common sense approach. And you ask, why is it happening? It's politics. A lot of the people, politicians are a lost cause, in my opinion. A lot of them, they're not going to listen to this program, and
they're famous.
Huh?
They're stars now. They're famous.
They're stars. They're celebrities, rather than public servants. So what we got here is a vast majority of our population would think like you and I do, that if someone wants to come over here to work, give them a job, and if they stay here long enough, they can maybe become a citizen, take the test or whatever. Just like one of the guys you got working for you downstairs. He did it the right way. I remember he scraped up $1,500 to do the test or whatever. Or maybe he borrowed it. I don't know.
He came to my office and he was showing me the questions, and some of them stumped me. I was like, that's a pretty good test. We were going over it, kind of figuring it out, and then he went and did it and couldn't be more proud. Still has his heritage down there.
Yeah, and that's, if we should be offended that these people are coming over, but the ones coming over and did it the right way ought to be more offended.
We might have our buddy on the show one of these days.
Yeah, we should. We have him up here. But here's the thing. The other thing is why are the politicians getting away with this, convincing their people, their constituents, that they're going to carry the flag and bring this one criminal back to Maryland, for Christ's sakes? I mean, the guy's a bad guy. And for the life of me, the politicians are all forming up to go to Club Med down there and see what bring him back.
They don't formulate their own opinions.
Yeah.
They're the machine from either side of the parties, whatever. Give them their talking points. They don't even comprehend the talking points. And it's all about, can I win the next election and not do what's right for my constituents? So
over the years, I've heard some politicians claiming mainly when we go to war somewhere, that it's arrogant that we show off and go over and save another country, right? I've heard that. It's just arrogance to go over and rescue another country. Well, what's more arrogant than to tell the world there's 193 countries in the world, not counting the two like Palestine and the Vatican. So that makes 195. But let's talk about the 193, including the United States. That anybody that wants to come from those other countries can come. Period. Mm-hmm. With no limitations, no requirement, just come. We'll take care of you. That's the ultimate of arrogance right there, that this country can afford to take everybody in the world over here. Now, not everybody in the world is going to come here, but when you make a deal and you open your arms, you don't know how many are going to come, how many are in the pipeline, how many deserve to come, how many legitimately have the need to request for asylum. I think those asylum seekers ought to be very rare. It's head of another country or someone that's being persecuted, but not the whole population level that's poor.
If we have no filtration, then don't they just send us their bad guys?
Well, that's if they're I would do that too.
Just send all the bad guys to.
Yeah, I wish we could send all of our bad people somewhere else.
Yeah.
But we don't do that, and we can't even send the bad people that don't even belong to us back. I think they ought to go back to Salvador.
We can't even send our own bad guys to our own jails sometimes because there's too much leniency.
Well, yeah, they don't even have a. It's almost. It's the criminals that are protected more. It costs more to protect or to incarcerate a criminal than it does to the victim. I think we ought to help the victims with some kind of way, especially if they're victimized by a government program that brought people over here. Now, I never saw these people getting on airplanes, flying in the United States, but I believe it's true that we were doing that. And if they brought any of those over here and they committed a crime, I think the government is complicit in that.
Oh yeah, no doubt. But that's a complicated subject.
No, common sense is not complicated.
Well, that's true. They've made it complicated now because I think what's happening is you see with all the legal loopholes and things, lawyers and judges or whoever's overriding certain decisions come up with some obscure way to say, well, that wasn't legal or that wasn't right and that didn't have due process.
I'm overusing this term, but arrogance is the biggest problem. They got judges that are arrogant, that think they can be above the law. Mm-hmm. Now, there's people that would argue that they are the law, they can interpret the law, and that's why we have appeals, but my goodness, I don't know why we're even, some of these cases are being brought up to judges that are not even in the area where the person is from.
What's more scary to you and keep you up at night, that we now have all of this news cycle and we see all this stuff as it's happening versus maybe in the past or whatever, maybe just the optics weren't there because nobody knew about decisions that were being made?
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, Brad. The communications now is so good, but the problem is the communication's so good, but the only people seem to be using it are the politicians.
Yeah.
They are the celebrities that choose to get on that bandwagon. And I don't want to hear it anymore that we're a nation of immigrants. All of my family came over from Ireland and Germany. And they were all immigrants. Mm-hmm. Everybody in the United States is an immigrant.
Right.
Unless you're Native American. I mean, and maybe some of them came from Canada. I don't know. But this is the way the world
I think my generation, itself. I identify as an American just because I don't have roots elsewhere. At some point we all become Americans. But I hear what you're saying about everybody originated from somewhere else other than Native Americans. But here we are, and we have a great country.
Yeah,
250 years.
250 years coming up real shortly, the anniversary, and it's not a long time in the calendar of the world, but it's long enough that we know better now. For so many years we did it the right way, and mainly because of communications, this phone I got right here, in the last 20 or so is when this thing has really started compounding itself, the problems.
Yeah. Because
people in the poorest nations in the world can see what it's like in America, and they can see that we've invited them to come over. Get to the airport, we'll give you a vacation to come to the United States, all expense paid for the rest of your life.
Yeah, not to mention even the false propaganda that might be out there that they're even seeing that where they don't even know they're doing anything wrong. And that's probably where some of the confusion becomes too, because who knows what they're being sold.
Well, that's a good point. They're just natural to look out for yourself and to your family, and to say, oh, we got it bad here. Look on this phone. Everybody's got cars and houses and the American dream. I want that.
Yeah.
And then we send the planes over and bring them over.
Go get on a subway in New York City. You'll have a different opinion.
Well, tell me about that.
Well, I mean, it's a terrible experience. I've got people I know that live there, and I mean, it's a beautiful place and an amazing place with all the things to do and all the history, but they're living on those laurels. They're living on Broadway and living on Empire State Building, these things. But it's becoming. But when you walk around and you just going through daily life there, it's a problem. There's a lot of crime. People pushing people on the subway into the tracks. People committing crimes on the trains when you're trapped, and if you're, and it's scary because there's a lot of drugs, a lot of temperament, a lot of mischief and juvenile crime. It's not a good place to be because you get trapped on those trains, especially, and that's the only way you get around, unless you want to spend a fortune on Ubers up and down Manhattan.
Oh, you don't even know what Uber you're getting into.
Well, even the Ubers, I mean, from my experience, I mean, obviously, I think the Uber's safe, but you would go broke if you were just a working person there.
New York it's changed. It's been cyclic, right? They cleaned it up, got really good. You could walk the streets, be no problem. Then it's back down in the toilet again. I quit going there when I was president of the Medal of Honor Society. We had meetings there because some of the foundation members were there, and they'd host meetings. Worst experiences I ever had were getting off the plane. There's a sign says they'd walk up to you. They're clever. You get worked, you're a mark. Everybody's a mark. Oh, your limo's right over here. Well, they could say there was a limo for me, I guess, to get me to this place, and so I started following this person. Well, wait a minute. Who are you? Who ordered you? Whatever. Well, then you can tell that they're just trying to get you in that car. And once you're in there, I'm not saying they're going to do something criminal to you other than try to extort you for money.
You'd be the wrong guy to kidnap.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do know that it's been. I did get behind one of them and said I was going to pull his ears off if he didn't stop his damn vehicle right now.
I like it
because
you're comfortable in your own environment, and it's funny because I'll see stories about Pueblo, Colorado, and the crime rate and everything else, and where I went to school growing up, that's the worst neighborhood in Pueblo, and I'm like, really? I'll go walk the middle of that street all day long. I mean, but I could be in New York City where I'm not from, and maybe be a little more sketchy in my opinion. So it is interesting how, but I think how people promote things, and they use per capita crime and things like that. Well, that's how they lower the bigger city crime rate by per capita, but it's not really.
I heard that
assessment.
about Pueblo too, Brad, and I was raised here, and I ran the streets at night with my buddies, getting into little mischief, but I don't even mention what the mischief was because it was nothing.
Yeah, nothing now.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
But it was a good place to be raised, and I guess we knew a little bit about Mexican immigrants coming across. That's who worked in the fields and stuff like that. That's where you got to have them.
Pueblo might be a small melting pot like New York City because of the steel mill and our farmland and everything else. I mean, you have Italians and Bojans, and Irish and Hispanics and everybody, Indians. We
got along.
Yeah.
The other thing what I really found remarkable is this town is predominantly one political side, and before an election there'd be signs in the yards and vote for this person, and next door is this person from the opposite party, and da 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 da. No one tore the signs up, and when the election was over, they put the signs in their basement, and, and it was over. But
Somebody's
now
gotta
you're
win.
an enemy.
Somebody's got to win.
Now you're an enemy if you support something that the other side supports. But get back on immigration. I think the administration is on the right track by cutting benefits to those that aren't citizens.
Why would they have benefits?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't even understand how you get them.
I don't even know. And I think the benefits should be in a wealthy nation, should be for those that are mentally, physically ill, maybe old, like me, maybe, that can't work anymore, and take care of those people. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I admire some of the American Indians, Native Americans. They take care of their elders.
Mm-hmm.
And Alaska Natives were the same way. They took care of their elders. They put them up here on a pedestal, and I admire them for that. And I don't know whether they took care of them financially. I think the federal government does give money to Native Americans and Alaska Natives, but that's just because what we do. But within their tribes, they do take care of their elders. And I can remember, and we're getting off track a little bit, but I'm looking at values, though. Someone that would leave their country to come here just because they didn't have what they thought they should have, and they've looked on the internet and said, oh, America's a place to come. Just come here and you'll get anything you want. That's really not fair to them either, because, of course, we've offered it to them. And, some of the most incredible stories that you can read are those of immigrants that have gone through Ellis Island or somewhere, even through the South, and worked hard and became very successful. Not every billionaire or multimillionaire in the United States is white Anglo. No, they're from everywhere because they worked hard.
Right.
They worked hard.
They have talent in a lot of instances.
Oh, and
most instances, I would say.
Yeah. So even if people came over from another country with the right reason they're going to work, it's tough to refuse the handouts that they're offered.
Yeah.
And it'll ruin them. I'll tell you another little story that we can finish up with. In 1975, I brought my Chinese team to Vietnam, that was in Vietnam, the United States. And every one of them did great. They couldn't speak English. They couldn't speak Vietnamese either. They were Chinese. They spoke a little Vietnamese. So I had them in North Carolina, and we got them a house, and they were starting to get little occupations, mow lawns and things, just to get some income coming in. And they were doing good. And I came back from a trip. I was still in the government, working for the Army. And these guys said, we've got to have a meeting, Kovan. So he sat around and says, this guy, they say this guy, it happened to be a woman, but they couldn't speak much, as I said, and says, this guy, she come to see us. And I'm thinking, what guy? Wait a minute, Kovan. This guy say, we give you $300, this man, this man, this man, this man. $300 for what? No, she said, we give $300. Well, it was welfare that was allocated to the Indochina refugees. And they'd hired a Vietnamese-speaking woman, probably a wife of a soldier or somewhere. But anyway, she could, and these guys couldn't speak Vietnamese, but they didn't get the whole message. And I said, no, don't do that, because that's my money. That's tax money. Oh, okay. So after about, I was gone another 60 days or come back, and Nego said, Kovan, we need to talk. We went to their house. They're all living in one house. They sat me down there, and I knew this was serious stuff, but I didn't know what the subject was. This guy, I said, come on. No, wait a minute, Kovan, wait a minute. This guy say, we give you $300 this man, $300 this man, $300 this man. We give you 50%. To me.
Oh.
And I said, whoa, we can't do that. It's illegal and all of that. And this woman had convinced them that they needed to have this money. So the hardest challenge I had of bringing them over was, hey, Ben, it's a dog's world, he knows, is fending off those well-meaning folks in the bureaucracy to give them money.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to help them.
That's a great story.
It wasn't going to help them. And so they finally got it. Every one of them retired, got jobs at different places. Some of them did really well. Some of them were driving fancier cars after 20 years than I had. But
the moral of that story is that they didn't take the welfare, didn't take the handout, found another way by being in America to make money, and they were successful without being on the till.
Yeah, they were able to use their ingenuity, their ability, and to survive.
Right.
What the government does by giving out that money is discourage the initiative to do good.
Yeah. The funny part I find of that story is that they were using the word "this guy," and it was a woman. If you do that today in Colorado, a bill passed, I think a couple of days ago or a week ago, that means if that you go to jail calling somebody the other word.
Well, I'm afraid I'm going to go to jail probably because when I talk to soldiers, a lot of time there's female soldiers out there, and I'll say, guys, I said, wait a minute, I think all of you know that what I'm talking about, you're all guys, and it doesn't mean disrespect for different gender, and to this day, every one of them, I look at the female soldiers out there and I say, is that a problem? Oh no, we're okay with that. We understand.
Yeah.
So it's almost all of the problems we're having, the immigration and all these things and the gender stuff is some bureaucrat or some politician making it a big deal. They just have not enough to do. They're just too comfortable.
Too many rules.
Too many rules. And to make a new rule, to fix an old rule it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I have one rule before we kind of wrap this up, and that would be for everybody out there watching this to subscribe to our channel. Get your family and friends to subscribe. We need the viewership. We're hearing a lot of great things. We had a friend of ours, Pete Lemon, who's a Medal of Honor recipient, texted me and called me this morning and told me, you guys are doing great things. I wish more people were watching. So anybody that is watching us, make sure you get the word out there and let people know that we're working hard up here trying to come up with interesting topics. We're not always right. I certainly am not. But please subscribe on our YouTube and our podcast and Spotify, wherever you're at, and join in. We got the quotes book here on the table that's always readily available to buy from the Center for American Values, AmericanValuesCenter.org, and Drew Dix's book, which if you haven't read it, it's a must read, so you understand where this man that's up all night thinking about these topics, where he comes from and how he earned his Medal of Honor. But
well, Brad, I appreciate that plug on the book, and the proceeds go to the center. And but the other thing is this it's a great country we live in. It's unfortunate that the citizens are allowing people to speak for them. Now, we're not telling you what to think. We're just telling that you can think. So common sense has been the basis for a lot of decisions. It's the basis for from the beginning of time, when they created the need for security in their little tribes or wherever they were, or the government, create a government to keep law and order so people wouldn't be chasing each other's wife or they had rules.
Yep.
And it's simple. We got rules now that don't even defy reason.
Yep.
They defy the safety of your family. They don't encourage that. In fact, what they're doing by having these bad people in the United States, they're exposing our families to victimization, and so follow us, put the word out, and just remember to not do that is tolerating poor behavior, and just remember tolerance is a character flaw.
Just because no one knows doesn't mean it isn't true.